my PC mobile, let my partner smoke him. Chuck E. Cheese, I'm up, a piece of him, I roll him. I'm a gangster, I know that baby, I pull. Right now, I'm surrounded by some gangsters from Andoya. I heard I...
What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm realizing that there is a lot of change that's happening in my life. A year ago, I would never have thought that my life would be where it is today, mostly because for the last year I've been working really hard to almost reimagine who I am, and I really started running into problems with how people were perceiving me from the outside. People would know me from my past life, or who I used to be, or the person that I came across as a year ago or 2 years ago, and they would hold on to this idea of who they thought I was, and that's not necessarily bad, it's just that's who they remember me as. But as I grow and I develop and I make the conscious decision to change who I am or who I want to be or the values that I want to embody, I myself will change. The whole point of being a human is to adjust to the circumstance. That's one of the best things about developing as a person. You get to change, you get to make different decisions. You don't have to be the same person that you feel like you have to be. And so today I really just wanted to get into the idea of change and how it can affect you and how other people will see you after you change or in the middle of your development or your metamorphosis and push back on it or not be fully supportive of it, and how all of those elements encompass the whole process by which you become a new person or you embody a new set of values. And so the first thing I want to get into is that the idea that people who've known you for a while will subconsciously put you into a particular box because that's just who they've known for the majority of their life. That's just the version of you that they know. And so I don't necessarily think this is bad, and it's not on them because it's pretty much a subconscious thing that they do, because our brains are wired to categorize things and group things. Your brain is simplifying things to make things easier to understand. Oh, Molly likes to sing. Okay, so whenever I think of Molly, I think that she likes to sing. And so when I think about her birthday present, I'm gonna get her something that encompasses musical elements because it's easier this way. This is how our brains make sense of things. Again, I wanna say that that alone is not necessarily the problem. The problem is when you understand that you've fully outgrown that version of yourself, but you feel pressured to conform to that outdated version of yourself. Continuing to try to fit into an old mold is honestly probably more difficult than just allowing it to just be, and can honestly be pretty challenging, especially if you've already acknowledged that that isn't who you are anymore, or that you've grown beyond those standards, and that you've developed new traits and perspectives that they don't seem to acknowledge. When I think about this, I always go back to 12 universal laws, specifically the one that states as above so below, but mostly in this case we'll be talking about it from the standpoint of so within, so without. All it really describes is that the universe works in frameworks. It basically copies and applies to certain things that don't necessarily have to do with one another. For example, electrons in an atom very similarly orbit its nucleus, just like the planets orbit the sun. And the way in which those two processes work are actually very similar. And so when you think about it, the smallest molecule that humans are able to see versus almost the biggest structures that we have been able to identify in our universe both follow the same kind of framework. That is just a very physical, very digestible example, right? But in this case, I really want to get into the idea of how we as humans have this so within, so without kind of framework that can be very closely associated and compared and contrasted to the growing cycle and the process and life of a tree. If you have ever existed, you have seen pictures or have seen in person a tree that has grown in an obscure way. There's pictures on the internet where you see trees have been growing on the sides of mountains. You've seen trees grow through a broken down car. I've always found this fascinating because when the tree is faced with an obstacle that has the capability of stopping its progress, it doesn't just keel over and die or just stop growing. The tree will literally grow around that obstacle so that it can reach the nutrients that it needs. They adapt to their environment and still find a way to get the nourishment that they need, usually in pretty creative ways. And just like the tree grows through obstacles, so do you. Yes, it may take time. Yes, it might be a little difficult in the beginning. You won't get as much sunlight that you need. You won't get enough water that you need. But eventually, your roots will grow so far deep that you'll get to that reservoir for the nourishment that you need. And your branches will grow around those obstacles to reach the sunlight that it needs. But the reality is that it won't happen tomorrow. But when you're committed to the process and have trust and patience that you're going to grow through that, then you're gonna find peace and solace in that journey. It's just like the tree doesn't stop growing when obstacles get in its way. You don't just stop growing when obstacles get in your way. You're gonna find a way, just like the tree does. Now, the second point I really want to get into is just as the seasons change, so do you. With each season, the tree responds to environmental cues that tell them, okay, this is the time that I need to preserve my energy, and this is the time that I need to use the excess amount of energy that I have in order to produce flowers and fruit. Because in the spring and summer, the tree uses the excess amount of energy to do just that, produce fruit and flowers. But in the winter time, the tree goes through all these processes, not even just the winter, it's the winter and the fall. The tree sends signals to the leaves to stop producing chlorophyll, which why in the fall the tree's branches and leaves start to lose color and have that discoloration, because it's sending signals to the leaves to stop producing chlorophyll so that the tree doesn't have to always allocate water to those places in its body, so that it can preserve the energy and the water and its resources to the essence of which it survives. Sometimes you're just gonna have to let your leaves go brown because you can't give energy to that relationship anymore, or that job isn't serving you anymore, and you have to come back to yourself and allocate that energy because you don't have enough to give to your branches in that season. And again, that's totally okay because it's part of the cycle. It's part of what's supposed to happen. In the winter, trees will shed their leaves and their fruit and everything associated to a tree except for its roots and its bark. All the growth that the tree is doing in any facet or any form during the winter is only in its roots, because the tree is more concerned with allocating its energy to growing its roots at its foundation so that it can get the nourishment it needs to survive the harsh temperatures that's not necessarily favorable for it. On the outside, a tree in the winter may look malnourished or dead. You, during a tough time, might look unmotivated or sad or uninterested. But the reality is, when you're going through the winter, the only thing that you should be focused on is your foundation and spreading your roots and allocating all the energy that you have to making sure that you are going to survive that winter. And that's totally okay. Sometimes you have to take a couple days off. Sometimes you need that solo trip. Sometimes you just need a little while to come back to yourself so that you can feel like yourself when it's the springtime and it's the summertime and you have so much excess and energy. And in the same breath, when you have that abundance of energy, when those seasons come around, you're supposed to take those opportunities. You're supposed to feel good about creating and producing fruit, because when you produce fruit, you nourish everyone around you. So I really just want to encourage you guys to understand that life does happen in seasons, and there are going to be seasons where you are producing and you are doing well, and there are going to be seasons where you have to allocate that energy inward. Understand that even in these good per se or bad seasons, they are always temporary, and there's always going to be another season that you're going to have to come back to yourself, or you're going to have to expand yourself and take opportunities or dial it back a little bit. Well, I just talked in front of this camera for 23 minutes, so I'm gonna have to try to find a way to condense this to make this a little bit more digestible, but hopefully y'all was able to get something out of this. Hopefully I was able to articulate myself and y'all was able to pull something off of this. But listen, y'all, look, I linked a tally form in the description box below. I would really appreciate you guys if you filled out that tally form, because when you fill the form out, it's just a way to interact with the channel and kind of build that community, because the biggest goal here, honestly, is to build a community where people feel comfortable coming here and expressing themselves and bringing their problems to a safe space so that we can have those conversations. The form is completely anonymous. I don't even know who fills the forms out, but there is a space to put an anonymous name. So if I do ever bring it up in a video, I would be using the anonymous name, but even so, I wouldn't even know the origin. Again, guys, thank you so much for the support. The last two videos did so unbelievably well that it was honestly kind of surprising. I did not think it was gonna do that well whenever I put the first two out, but you guys really did come out and support. Shout out the YouTube algorithm. But again, to the people who really did interact with the videos, left a comment, all the nice things y'all said, it really does mean a lot. It really does. So if you guys have anything you want me to talk about, I'll just put that section in the form below, actually. Anyways, thank you guys so much again for watching to the end of the video if you made it this far, and I hope you guys have a good week, and I will see you guys in the next one.